Well, good evening, everybody. It's my honor today to introduce you to this PADS meeting to discuss housing and homelessness services in rural Polk County and kind of why we're all here doing the work. So my name is Jeremy Gordon. I'm a commissioner in Polk County. I'm also chair of the Mid-Willamette Valley Homeless Alliance and chair of PATHS. So PATHS is sponsoring this event. PATHS stands for Partners Aligned Towards Housing Solutions. We formed, in early 2022, I want to say, as a result of funding from the state through House Bill 4123. I believe a city manager from Dallas sent me an email and said, hey, should we apply for this funding? It looks like it requires counties and cities to get together and make a plan and start doing work on homelessness prevention and solving the issue in the community. I said, sure, but we might want to ask more cities. So I convened a meeting with all of the mayors and city managers in Independence, Monmouth, Dallas, Willamina, Falls City, also representatives from the Confederated Tribes of Ronde, and then eventually Mid-Willamette Valley Community Action Agency. And we sat in a room and said, should we do this? And we said, yes, but let's just do it for rural Polk County. Well, why is that? Homelessness, first of all, looks a bit different in rural areas. It's not as visible. We're seeing a lot more people couch surf, living in cars, RVs temporarily, not seeing the big unmanaged congregate camps we're seeing in larger metro areas. So one challenge is to convince ourselves and the community that there's a problem. So we conducted several listening sessions to hear from folks who are interfacing with homeless populations in rural Polk County. We heard from law enforcement and code enforcement, emergency services personnel, fire departments. We heard from school districts. We heard from behavioral health folks, faith communities, down the line. And there was consensus that, yes, there are homeless people in rural Polk County. We are serving them, responding to them often, and we need to coordinate our response. So we applied for funding and received it. We're one of 8 communities to receive $1 million from the state. So the requirements of House Bill 4123 are to sign off on a memo of understanding, an intergovernmental agreement between all of the jurisdictions, agreeing that we're going to work together in good faith to prevent and end homelessness in our communities. Easy task, right? No problem. But we got every single jurisdiction, every single city council, the board of commissioners, everybody approved this memo of understanding. And we're operating under that agreement and under that ethos because we think this work is important from a moral perspective, it's important from a systems perspective and a policy perspective and a community perspective. So we started meeting monthly and started devising a strategic plan based on data that we had been gathering. Luckily, we had existing in Polk County something called Family and Community Outreach and Service Integration, which is one thing that's kind of required in rural areas. Because there aren't a ton of services and investment, I've been fighting very hard for investment, by the way, we have to coordinate resources, integrate resources, and work collaboratively. We can't work in silos. We can't compete with each other for funding. We need to build relationship, build rapport, and actually do the work in ways that are mutually beneficial for all of us. And that had been happening in Polk County for many years. So I came into this position with that ethic already established. But we did lack resources. We lacked money. And we lacked some service providers that normally would serve Polk County, but had to lean in a bit more. So we invited more service providers to the table, like Church at the Park, like Community Action, and many others. So one great thing about today, given some of the conversations about the Church at the Park micro-transitional sheltering operation at Christ Church, the proposed operation, it created a lot of conversation, and people were wondering, well, what services are available? Do we even have services? Well, it turns out people have been working with homeless households for many years in Polk County, and that work is only increasing. I will say that Christ Church, the board decided not to go ahead with a lease with Church at the Park, so Church at the Park will have to find another location in rural Polk County for that sheltering site. But another reason why we wanted to have this event today is to place that sheltering site in the context of a wider service array. There are lots of services in Polk County, again, and through the governor's emergency order, we also received more prevention resources, which is a huge, huge strategy in Polk County, and also rehousing resources to get people into housing. There's no way to solve homelessness without getting people into appropriate housing. Sheltering, transitional sheltering, is not meant to be a static situation for folks. It's not meant to be an end-all solution, and it exists in a wide array of contexts and services. So we still need a shelter in rural Polk County. That need does not disappear because the Christ Church site is not moving forward. So we are going to work very hard to find a suitable location for that operation. Just wanted you all to know. I know that's been on people's minds. So another thing we're looking at in rural Polk County are gaps. We're doing a full sort of inventory of existing services and trying to find ways to fill gaps. And every rural city, the Confederated tribes, and community action, and the county services are hard at work doing that. And I want to thank you for being here to learn more about the good work being done and the opportunity we have before us to prevent homelessness for as many people as possible and to end it for as many people as possible, because that's what we must do. So I'm going to hand the mic over to, I believe, Ryan, and there'll be some presentations from service providers. Then at the end, you'll see these tables on the perimeter. Have conversations. Talk to folks. What are you seeing? What sort of households are you serving? I think we have a lot of preconceived notions about what homelessness looks like for people, what types of people are homeless, and the homeless population is as diverse as any human population. So keep that in mind as you're talking to folks, hearing stories, and hearing the good work. So thank you, and welcome.
Hello, everyone. Can you all hear me? Awesome. Thank you so much for coming to this meeting. It's really nice to see all of you. My name is Ryan Pollard. I'm with Polk County Family and Community Outreach. I'll be kind of doing the mic running tonight. And so before I kind of pass the mic off to one of our speakers, I do want to say that this meeting is being recorded, and it will be posted on our Paths website, as Commissioner Jeremy Gordon talked about Paths. So with all further ado, I'm going to bring up Ashley Hamilton from Mid-Willamette Valley Community Action Agency to discuss rural data in Polk County.
All right, just want to get settled here. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ashley Hamilton. I am a Chief Program Officer with Mid-Willamette Valley Community Action Agency, an organization which provides anti-poverty initiatives for Marion and Polk County. My other gig is a proud board member with Paths. And so I want to thank each of you for being here tonight, and I'm really excited to share with you all of the stories you're about to hear this evening, and from all of our fellow partners and their relationships and what they're actively doing to provide services to your fellow neighbors. But before that conversation can begin, I did want to provide a quick landscape of what data really does look like here locally, specifically as it relates to housing instability and homelessness in rural Polk County. So as a mechanism to evaluate the need levels within Polk County, okay, I'm going to turn this up. So as a mechanism to evaluate the need levels in our community, Polk County undergoes a housing survey annually. So this traditionally occurs every January. It's known as the point-in-time count. And this process essentially determines the number of persons at risk or experiencing homelessness in a given community. This initiative is asked to be a part of a larger count that happens nationally as directed by Housing and Urban Development. So in short, just consider it a snapshot of what a community is facing every given year. And this process is accomplished in coordination with the efforts of Polk municipalities, organizations, and service providers. So this last cycle, so this would be January 2023, the point-in-time count identified 180 individuals who self-reported as experiencing homelessness or being at risk of homelessness. Now, the majority of these individuals were adults. However, we did see growing trends in our young adult population experiencing housing concerns. So that's your emerging adulthood age, 18 to 24. And then, of course, a concerning number of unaccompanied youth below the age of 18 who also came out for this survey. Slide, please. Now, using the point-in-time count, we can also identify 3 distinct groups who need our support over time. Now, this support is tailored. It has to be individualized to best meet the needs of the households who presented during the point-in-time count and best meet the needs of their vulnerabilities and experience. This will then help them to obtain and maintain housing over time. So it's really a client-centered, individualized approach. For the 2023 point-in-time count, as you can see here, the majority of those who were identified were unsheltered, so about 91 individuals. However, the remaining were actively engaging with your Polk County providers in our shelter and transitional housing environments, and they may be actively engaging with our Polk County systems and providers when they are in need of support to maintain their current housing. Some additional data we can gather from the point-in-time count are who make up these households? Who are they specifically? Who are these community members? The simplest answer is they are just like you and I. So as Commissioner Gordon stated, they're just as diverse a population as all of us sitting here today. They have experiences in their past, they have a present, and most importantly, they have a future filled with hopes and desires. But of course, from the point-in-time count, we can also derive some pretty simple data. First and foremost, you can break down between the male and female-led household numbers. We can identify how many households who have veterans or members who served in the armed forces within their home. We also can learn that 16% of the unsheltered population are unsheltered with a child in their family. They have a dependent minor in their home. So it's essential data that we can use to help start framing and building solutions tailored toward these groups. But the most important 2 stats that I particularly like to point out include the 43% chronically homeless rate, which speaks to the number of individuals who have sustained or patterned homelessness in our community. And then, of course, the 84% of individuals who are experiencing housing-related concerns within their community of origin. And what that tells us is people who are, when you put these stats together, people who experience adversity, and especially housing adversity in our community, they're not able to necessarily always find the way out of that circumstance on their own. Slide. Secondly, it also helps us identify where are the households in our community. How can we start bringing light to the issue? So this in particular is just a snapshot of a map of unsheltered households in Polk County during the point-in-time count in 2023. As you can tell, it's about what you would expect with a larger number of individuals concentrating around some of our municipalities, largely because of the services and access to basic need items, but it's also because they're concentrating around families and social ties. The only thing I'll point out in this map is specifically related to Falls City, a population that is 5% that of Central, but is carrying 30% of the unsheltered population within Polk County. So definitely a disproportionate impact within that small community. Slide, please. And the last thing we'll point out from the point-in-time count is identifying where are people staying in our community. So we know roughly where they're at, but why don't we see them? As Commissioner Gordon pointed out, it's because they're largely invisible. It kind of breaks down a little bit differently depending on which domain these households kind of fall within. If at risk, they're largely couch surfing, they're facing eviction within their own homes, and then if they're experiencing unsheltered homelessness, they're in recreational vehicles or RVs without proper utilities or hookups. They're in cars, so they're kind of moving around from place to place. So it's not a static experience, so it's harder to identify and always see. Slide, please. So with all this information combined, and this is just the tip of it, We need to start coming together as a community to identify and create solutions tailored to the needs of our fellow neighbors. So what I can tell you is there are 4 distinct domains of interventions currently happening within Polk County right now, many of whom you'll hear from today. You have a prevention domain and focus, which is especially critical at keeping households in their homes now, which every day that passes becomes more and more present when our housing supply is so low. So what can we do to keep people in what's already here? Our second domain, outreach, engaging with people where they're at and helping them resource navigate to the appropriate services. Then you have shelter and transitional housing, stabilizing people from an unsheltered or unsafe environment, providing their basic needs. And then lastly, the all-important one, housing. The only true solution to homelessness is a home. So in total, this is a continuum of service delivery already at your doorsteps with the opportunity to expand and grow. It is designed to be a collective of solutions. There is not a single provider or a single answer that can do this in isolation. It's multidimensional, and it will take all of us. But it is an answer that I truly believe is possible, but only if we can do it together. And thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. The next portion of the agenda, you see we're actually going to dive into a little bit about what Ashley just talked about. So there's kind of 3 phases there, and we're going to start with outreach. And so actually, I'm first on the list to talk about outreach. So hello again. I'm Ryan. I'm the homeless prevention coordinator for family and community outreach in Polk County. And a little bit about what we do for outreach in a snapshot is there are obviously a lot of people within rural Polk County that are experiencing homelessness or they're at risk of being homeless. So we want to reach out to where they're at, to where they're staying, whether they are staying in a place, whether they're staying in an RV, or they're camping, or they could be even couch surfing. We meet them where they're at. We will meet them for coffee. We have a vehicle that our county has that we have an outreach team. We're able to go out and really assess what their needs are. And so we're able to assess if it's mental health. We've got a really good partnership with our behavioral health upstairs in our Polk County building. We also do coordinated outreach efforts with Community Action Agency, as well as The Rock, which is our Recovery Outreach Community Center. And that center is located in Dallas, actually. So we have some coordinated efforts. We're going to meet client needs. And so what happens when we have those needs? We actually track all of their needs in a database. So every interaction that we have, we track it. And we want to make sure that we're following up with clients, that we're able to help meet their needs, whether it be a home, whether it be addiction treatment, anything that they might have. We also provide food and water. So people are able to actually come into our resource center to be able to get food, to get water, and to meet with us there as well. So we have a nice meeting space for people. So that's just a little bit about what we do for outreach. And now I'm going to pass the mic off to Community Action Agency Arches with Robert Marshall.
All right, good evening. All right, good evening, everybody. So we'll take questions at the end.
No, it's not a question.
Okay.
Could you please tell us where you're actually located? Each of you, is that
Absolutely. Yes.
Yes.
in Dallas?
So our street outreach programs cover all of Marion, Polk County, all of Polk County, and so we'll get into that in just a moment. So my name is Robert Marshall. I am the program manager that oversees our outreach programs as well as our emergency warming and cooling efforts for Community Action Agency, the Arches Project. And so the primary purpose of homeless street outreach programs are to connect with individuals that are experiencing unsheltered homelessness, connect them to basic needs, services, and supplies, and help them navigate into sheltering opportunities as well as permanent housing endeavors. So our community outreach teams come into Dallas, come into Polk County, I should say, twice a week, sometimes more often, and we will integrate and we'll coordinate with Polk County Family Community Outreach. We'll network with The Rock, and we'll network with other community organizations in the area, and look for those individuals that are experiencing unsheltered homelessness interact with them, engage with them, and try to connect them to services. We'll provide basic need services and supports and supplies. So that could mean outdoor sheltering equipment such as tents, tarps, sleeping bags, helping them with mainstream benefit attainment. So maybe that's helping them get connected to the Oregon Health Plan. Maybe that's helping them replace their driver's license. Maybe that's helping them fill out applications for housing or various other services that are out there, as well as being able to provide transportation to individuals that are seeking to get into shelter. So we are able to pick individuals up and we are able to transport them. Maybe they need to get to a doctor's appointment. Maybe they are looking to get to a sheltering opportunity, but they don't have the transportation resources for that. So we're able to take those individuals and get them over to there. One thing that I wanted to point out, I actually talked a lot about the data here of individuals experiencing unsheltered homelessness, and I just wanted to pull up some statistics based off of the services that we are providing here in Polk County. So since July 1 of 2022, we've provided 233 services to unsheltered individuals here in Polk County to 126 duplicate guests. So that means that some of those guests we've interacted with several times. And we've noticed that a lot of outreach is, kind of building those relationships, building those connections with individuals. So maybe the first time is just stopping by and saying hi, offering a bottle of water. But then the second time you show up, you offer them a bottle of water, and they open up a little bit more about their situation and what services they need so we can help navigate them to there. 38 of those services and 15 of those engagements occurred here in Monmouth in the Independence area. 134 of those services and 83 of those engagements occurred in the Dallas area. 57 of those services and 26 of those engagements occurred in Grande, Ronde, and Willamette. And we're able to track this information, and we put it up onto a interactive map so that we can see where these individuals are, so that we can follow back up with them. So if we're interacting with somebody that needs follow-up services, we're tracking that so we can connect with them. If you guys have questions afterwards, I'll be around. Please feel free to stop and pull me aside, and I'd be happy to answer any more questions about outreach. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Last but not least, for our outreach portion of the meeting, we have Dana Goodall, and she is from Polk County School-Based Mental Health Team.
Hello. So as Ryan said, my name's Dana. I get to supervise the school-based mental health program. So I physically am located in Dallas at the Academy building. But our program spans all of Polk County except for West Salem. So we have a mental health professional in all of the schools in the Central School District, Dallas, Perrydale, Fall City, and even Kings Valley Charter, which captures a lot of our Monmouth, Dallas kids. What I am going to talk to you about is a little bit about the program and what homelessness looks like. So we have the privilege, because we are in the schools supporting students, to celebrate some of the best moments of their lives with them, and also to support them through some of the hardest, which for a lot of youth is housing insecurity. It might not fit the definition of the federal definition of lacking a fixed, adequate nighttime environment. A lot of times the conversations we're having with youth and young adults are that their home is not a safe place to go or stay, but they don't have any other choice. We, nationwide, have a program called the McKinney-Vento program. It's a federal program, a law that was put in place with supports to help support youth who are struggling with houselessness, to maintain that tie to their home school. So with McKinney-Vento supports comes what most people think of as if your family has to move to Albany to find stable housing, you can get transportation to and from your home school so you can stay there for that year. In our little local area, we had just over 100 students who were on that McKinney-Vento list who qualified for services, which, going back to what Ashley said, the point in time count, it only showed that there were 22 youth who experience homelessness. So as we know from all this data, there are so many more students and young adults who are out there that we are just not capturing. There's probably, I would guess, another 50 to 60 youth easily that would not meet this McKinney-Vento definition, but who are struggling with homelessness. So outreach for us, a lot of our interaction involves helping to get them connected with food, helping to get them connected with their McKinney-Vento liaison in their district, helping them with clothes. If you think about how stressful it is to not have a safe place to go every night, and then add that on top of all of the ickiness of just being a teenager, it's really hard. When you are maybe wearing the same outfit to school every day and the judgment that comes from your peers, when you have to bring all of your belongings with you to school every day and hope that nobody takes your backpack, it's incredibly stressful. So it's a lot of mental health support as well for all these youth. CSC is here. They can probably echo all this information and home and for the youth shelter. So if you have questions, I'm happy to chat. But there's other folks who are also working with youth too that can share this information. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Next, we are going to transition into our transitional housing and shelter portion of the meeting. And to kick us off, we have Abby Warren here talking about Polk County warming centers.
All right, so you might be confused because on your agenda it says Matt Smucker. And I'm not Matt Smucker. As Ryan says, I'm Abby Warren, and I'm here to just talk today about the warming centers. But if you have additional questions and you want to know more, Matt is really going to be a good go-to person for more questions. So I'll give you a quick overview, but if you want to dive into specifics, he's really going to be your go-to person. So I hope I can capture it a little bit for you this afternoon. And again, if you have more questions, follow up on that agenda. And if you didn't get an agenda, Jody can help you back in the back and get that and get all that info for you. So the Polk County Warming Centers are rotational centers that are open for a 2-week stint. So these areas will sign up, typically churches, and in Fall City, the community center has been generous enough to welcome their space for a 2-week time period. And in that time period, any time when the temperature drops below 32 degrees, they'll activate that warming center. So when it's really cold outside, and typically in the state of Oregon, that's accompanied by some sort of precipitation, whether that be snow or rain, or a combination of both in one evening. When it drops below 32 degrees, we'll activate, and whoever is on rotation for that 2-week stint will activate. And so they will be ready to serve folks that come that night. Shelters will be open on those evenings from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. with hosts that are well trained in de-escalation, in trauma-informed training, and in suicide prevention. And Dana and I have had the privilege to work with staff and help to provide pieces of that training. Staff that are there receive a stipend for their time and their support. Probably not enough of a stipend, but we appreciate them so much, and they receive a little bit of a thank you for their time there that evening. Because of some additional funding for the last 2 years, they've been able to operate 3 days a week regardless of the temperature of that week, which is really, really neat because we know even if it's 33 or 34 degrees, it's still pretty darn cold, right? And so we were able to provide that support for even a couple of additional days. These locations are spread out throughout Polk County, so they really try to stagger these 2-week signups to really be all across our county. Transportation is a big barrier, so the staff really do as much as they can to make sure that folks that have that barrier of transportation are able to access the center that night. When they get there, they're welcomed with some food, some water, and a safe place to be. And the staff, again, are really well trained to meet the needs that might be there that night. So a really, really neat program. And if you could take a look at the slide that's behind me, you'll see that the numbers for this service have dramatically increased when we looked at this year's numbers versus the previous year's numbers. And when we look at the annual scale, we're looking at a time period of November to March. So the very beginning of November through the end of March. And we can see that heads in beds, so individuals in beds, went from just under 400 to over 1,000 people. So we can see that that need has seriously jumped. And when we look at individual guests that were served, we saw that it went from 44 and jumped all the way to 183 individuals that were served in that time period. So we're seeing a huge jump, and even though the number of days has jumped a little bit, it's a really incredible jump and a really incredible need for this service. So again, if you have additional questions, I was really thankful to be able to be here tonight, but if you have more questions, please reach out to Matt. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Abby. Next up here to talk about Gale's Lodge, we have Eric Enderle.
Thanks for having me tonight, guys. Can you hear me okay now? So, we opened Gale's Lodge in 2019, June. Actually, last week it was 4 years that we've officially been open. We've served 30 veterans in that time. We're in Dallas, by the way. I skipped that part. We've served 30 veterans in that time. The average length of stay there has been just under 8.7 months. Most often, the folks we serve are going to be on the older side. 50 to 74 is the age range we've served, but we've also served someone as young as 19 that was medically separated after being injured in basic training. What we then do is work with folks, identify what are their barriers. Is it an employment gap? Is it a training and education thing? What benefits are they entitled to? We then take them to the Veteran Service Office that we also run, connect them to VA benefits and other benefits they may be eligible based on their service, or community benefits as well. One of the big things that I think a lot of people know or don't know is the VA is a complex bureaucracy that moves at the speed of molasses in January. So oftentimes folks have benefits that they're entitled to. They're just not getting them yet. They're waiting. So here's our building there in Dallas. We partnered with Dallas United Methodist Church. They provide some peer mentors, some volunteer opportunities and coordination, and then we provide case management. While folks are there, they meet at a minimum at least once a week with the case manager. It's frequently much more than that to assess where they're at in their individual goals and paths, and provide any assistance we can. That's the big points. Are we doing questions at the end? Okay, so at the end, if you have questions, I'll be over there, or at the end of this, I'd be happy to answer them. Thanks.
Thank you, Eric. Third on our agenda, here to talk about Ediger Hall, is Gerad Neely.
Okay, so I get 30 minutes. That's what. My name's Gerad. I'm a pastor, so I actually speak for a living, so I apologize. She's got red cards back there. I've been watching. Yellow cards, too. I pastor a little church in Dallas on the corner of Lockreal and Ellendale, and about 4 years ago, because of a pit thing that I saw that I had no idea what it was, I noticed that we had some children in our community that were homeless or facing homelessness. And so our board went and talked to a principal of this little school behind us and asked him, hey, do you have homeless kids in your school? And the response was, actually, I can identify 13 families that, given one bad day, will likely be homeless in the next month. That turned into a conversation of resource. What do we have? What can we access? How can we serve? Should we serve? What does that look like? And that opened the door to a transitional guest house that we already had on our property. It had been used by the warming center, and so when you walked in originally, it was largely a big kind of corporate banquet room. You can't really put a family in there to offer them what we wanted, right? Respite, health, opportunity to feel safe and loved and nurtured, to recognize that they have an identity, that they have an opportunity to receive this value that they should deserve. And so in the last 2 years, thanks to a ton of outside resources and Brent's team, we have transitioned the inside of the building from basically a hall or a big, large, empty room into a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, full kitchen with 2 showers, 2 washers, 2 dryers, into a home. Our goal is to do short-term transitional homes. They are guests. They come in, they have an exit plan basically in the works when they walk in the door, and they are escorted and loved and nurtured the entire time they're there into a more permanent home. Did I say where I was? Dallas. Okay. You didn't have to show me a sign. I think I got us caught up.
That was amazing. Thank you. Okay, next up, here to talk about YHDP, our youth house, is Christopher Lopez.
Thank you, Ryan. Is this on? Thank you, Ryan, and thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. My name's Christopher Lopez, and I'm here in my capacity tonight as Associate Director of Home Youth Services. You'll see us in your program as YHDP Youth House. We actually have a working name for this right now. We're calling this Monmouth House at this point. We'll work with the youth that we serve to come up with a permanent name. But what is Monmouth House? So Monmouth House is a home for vulnerable youth. We'll serve up to 5 youth at the beginning, and this will be a space for youth ages 14 to 18 to come and have a safe space to be if home or wherever else that they're living isn't a safe space. This keeps youth from going into circumstances that, could be a little bit risky, could be a little damaging, right? Whether they would be alternately, running away or couch surfing. Does everyone know what couch surfing means? What that is? Yeah, I see a lot of head nods, a couple not. So couch surfing is oftentimes where, youth or young adults will find someone that will give them a space to be, but just for a little bit of time. Maybe it's a night or two, maybe it's a week, but then they kind of have to move on. For youth ages 14 to 18, this is really unstable. We all know how much youth and young adults need, how much support they need at those ages to be able to be successful in school, to be able to set up for success later in life. And this space will give them a stable space to be while they're going through school. Now, how long will you stay here? This is based off of a successful program called Taylor's House that we currently run in Marion County, and some of our youth stay for just a couple weeks. Some of our youth stay for months, much like many of the other initiatives that you've heard here tonight. This is a space to stabilize youth while they can get back into their normal home, while they can find more permanent solutions. Our goal is to keep youth in the school district that they're currently in. We'll work very closely with the McKinney-Vento program. We'll work very closely with the county to make sure that we're serving youth that are here and that we're giving youth a chance to stay in their school, stay in their community, and be part of that normal life that a lot of youth and young adults want to avail themselves of. Now, what will Monmouth House look like, right? It'll look like any other house on the block. We've done a lot of engagement, a lot of door knocking with our neighbors and individuals that live very close and have received overwhelming amounts of support. We won't have signs up. We won't have logos on on our van that we use to take them to school. We're trying to make it as much just like a normal home as much as we can, much like what PCL does for the clientele that they serve already in our community. We're just doing this for youth ages 14 to 18. Thank you very much. I appreciate you all for coming out tonight. It's so wonderful to see so many faces that I know, and thanks everyone for your support.
Thank you, Christopher. All right, next we've got DJ Vincent here to talk about Church at the Park.
I get to serve as the pastor of Church at the Park, and it is beautiful tonight to see so many community members out because you love your community. And thank you for wanting to lean in and learn more about those who are struggling and vulnerable in this community. And I want to take special opportunity to thank Christ Church, Pastor Steve, and the board for leaning in to imagine what it would look like to welcome those who are vulnerable and come alongside those folks. I was deeply inspired by our own mission and the way they reflected it, that, wherever folks need a table of love and acceptance, we want to open that up. When people find themselves on the margins, we want to go and stand beside them until they're not excluded but included in our community. We've been doing that since 2007, and right now we're focused on that transitional sheltering. And for that to work, it needs to be safe and supported. So when we think about folks who are on a sidewalk or in a park or living in their car, we know their brain is activated for survival. So when we provide safety through caring individuals, a locked door, and a defined space, they're able to stabilize and start thinking clearly about their life and about their goals. So we provide that safety by creating that defined space. We believe that people are only changed and transformed through relationship with healthy people. So we provide 24-hour staffing. Then think about when you're in survival mode and you have to spend a lot of energy and time just thinking about food. That distracts you from thinking about where am I going to find that job that I want? How am I going to get to that appointment around housing? So we provide that stability. Then you have to think about your physical and medical care. And so it's really important wherever we operate to have folks on site weekly connecting people to primary care and the behavioral health care that they need. And so we have partners that can meet with people right on site to provide that care. And then people have a case manager who is, clarifying their goals, and then a peer who will actually go shoulder to shoulder with them and go with them to appointments. And so because of that, in Salem, we've been able to come alongside families. Last year, we were able to come alongside almost 300 folks, a part of families, and we saw 73% of those connected to a new positive destination. We do the same thing with individuals, and many times because of the challenges, the things that they're facing, it takes a little bit longer, but we did see 63% of those folks move to positive destinations. And again, we understand we want to work with the community, whether in Independence or Monmouth or Dallas, to see a site that works best for this community so that those folks we've been talking about, they're not just statistics, they're brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles, and they want to be restabilized in this community. We want to find the right spot so that everybody who wants to belong in rural Polk County is going to feel welcome here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, DJ.
Just before we move on, I threw a couple slides here for DJ. Will you just describe what we're looking at today?
On the spot.
Brent is breaking the rules. He is the one with all those cards. So again, the imagination can be that it's going to be an encampment. The imagination can be that it's not going to be a place that you would want, your uncle or your grandmother. But these are park model places they'll have decks up there, and every 4 doors would have then a bathroom, shower, access to laundry, and the support services that restore dignity and move people towards self-sufficiency.
Next up, last but not least, in place of Michael Cherry talking about the Confederate tribes of Ronde, we have Commissioner Gordon.
Thanks for the overwhelming round of applause I just heard. So this is one of my favorite projects in the region. Every time somebody presents on it, I get teary because it's pretty magical. So Michael Cherry is on the PADS board. She's a tribal councilwoman, and their council has done tremendous work on poverty, on social services, and now on micro-sheltering. The inspiration for their micro-shelter project was actually Church at the Park. And when Michael told me about presenting this to the community, they received a lot of the same questions Church at the Park received for theirs here, a lot of the same fears and trepidations. But they went ahead and did it, and their first site is a 10-unit site with 2 bunks each. They served a lot of elders in their community. They served a lot of folks who had been sleeping outside, who were now in this unit. I do know that case management's required. Many of the same sort of service models that you've heard tonight. After the first site was put in, the community wrap their arms around the second site, which is upcoming, I believe, and there's been no resistance. There is a consensus of support in their community for the second site. Here are some pictures. A slightly different model than what Church of the Park is using now. They have sort of individual micro-shelters, a common area for folks to have meetings, to meet with service providers, et cetera, and to just congregate. And then, like Church of the Park, service providers do come on site, and they transition folks to more permanent solutions. I've talked to other tribal council members, and they're looking for more housing development in Grand Ronde as well. We're doing the same in Falls City. We're doing the same in Dallas. We're doing the same in Monmouth, Independence. We need more housing of all types for all people. So, but this is a critical stage in that continuum of services. I probably didn't make any of you cry like I am made to cry when I hear about this site, but if any partners have anything else to add, they can do so now. Otherwise, we'll move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Now we're going to move into our last piece of our presentations tonight, and we have 3 organizations here to talk about what rapid rehousing looks like for clients. And so first up on our list, we have Breezy Poynor from Mid-Willamette Valley Community Action Agency, Arches.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Breezy. I am the Director of Housing for Community Action and a proud resident of Independence. So rapid rehousing is an opportunity for individuals who are homeless or at risk of homelessness to receive rental assistance and case management for a year to 2 years. It is an opportunity to receive wraparound services that will assist in getting them to resources that they might not think were readily available to them, with somebody walking beside them. So we always talk about our case managers are not managing cases, they're more of a guide on the side to just help them and to help the household to determine what is the next best step for them. And so recently, in partnership with Polk County FCO, Community Action has a grant that is specific to rural Polk County that is rapid rehousing for literal homelessness for folks that are from rural Polk County area. So we will be, we've already kind of started hiring for and creating a program that will be based out of Monmouth and Dallas. We'll have locations in both sites where we will have case managers, a program manager that will be working with individuals that are literally homeless in those areas to help them find housing, to help them find what other resources that they're going to need in order to sustain that housing and get back on their feet and help their children, engage with schooling again and do whatever it is that those resources and their goals are for them to continue on being residents of Polk County. Yeah.
Thank you, Breezy. Next up from Salem Housing Authority, we have Nicole Utes.
Thank you, Ryan. Is this on? Yes, okay. Thank you. I'm Nicole Yates. I'm the Housing Administrator for Salem Housing Authority and the Day-to-Day Operations Director. I do have several of the team here today. I know you're probably wondering why a Salem-based organization is here tonight, but I want to tell you that we are really not your traditional housing authority. We are really solution-based and trying to find solutions to help our neighbors as well. Our two other rural housing authorities are much smaller than Salem Housing Authority. We know they need help, and we are here to help them tonight. So we did apply for some funding that is for rapid rehousing of voucher holders. One of the biggest barriers that we find, the VA is not the slowest. Our HUD documents are very slow. And I don't know if anybody has ever applied for assistance. You are applying pretty much for a mortgage. So navigating through that process is very difficult. We recognize that at Salem Housing Authority, and we're here to help the others, our neighbors, navigate through that. Whether that's in Polk County, Marion County, or Salem, we're here to provide that assistance. So we have funding available for up to 65 households in any of these jurisdictions, and we'll be able to remove barriers, help provide security deposit assistance. I can tell you that many of our voucher holders receive a voucher in their hand, and then they go, how do I pay for that $1,800 or $3,000 deposit? This is what this program is here for. We're hoping to be able to navigate individuals to be able to reside in the community they live in so that their children can continue to go to the schools that they go to currently. They're not having to necessarily move into our jurisdiction. We're there to help navigate through other jurisdictions in a partnership. So there's a lot of flexible barrier assistance, and I can tell you that we have a table here tonight. We're happy to answer any questions about our authority and how we're willing to help. We also are, we have several permanent supportive housing projects that we run in collaboration with many of these agencies up here today. I can tell you that both Church at the Park provide us rural referrals, and Arches provides us referrals. And I can tell you that those individuals come to our projects much more stable when they have a stepping stone. We're really seeing the cycle of housing work when we have navigation centers, we have transitional housing, and then we have our permanent housing programs, and we have a much higher success rate. Thank you. That's all I need.
Awesome. Thank you, Nicole. All right, last but not least, for our presentations on rapid rehousing, in place of Stephanie Gilbert, we have Abby Warren here talking about Polk County Resource Center.
Okay, I'm not Matt, and I am also not Stephanie. Still Abby, though, so glad to be here again. Super honored to be able to talk about the Resource Center. So you might have heard FCO, Family Community Outreach. The Polk County Resource Center is a co-location resource center that's housed inside of the Family and Community Outreach Department, sometimes known as FCO. FCO really works to be sort of the thread that takes clients through a lot of the services and programs that you got to hear about today. You heard from Community Action Agency about a number of the programs that they offer and funding streams that clients can access. You heard Commissioner Gordon talk about a bunch of different programs happening in the community that our resource connectors are aware of that are ready to get folks connected to. You heard about our Church at the Park program. You heard about Gerad Neely's Ediger Hall program. You heard about Ryan talking about the housing, homelessness and housing outreach program. All of those things, Dana's school-based mental health team, it's all funneled through FCO. So we really work to be a no wrong door. Stephanie Gilbert is the manager of the Family Community Outreach Resource Center program. On top of lots of other things. So she's really a wealth of knowledge. But we were talking to a community group, and we really boiled down the Resource Center to, it's a great first place to start. If you're not sure who to call, we want to be that resource. And if we don't do it, or we don't know a specific agency that does whatever it is that you need, we're sure going to find it. Our department director, Brent DeMoe, if you've ever met him, you know that if you bring a problem in front of him, he's sure going to solve it. And a lot of our heart and our desire to do the same thing comes from the leadership that we receive from Brent. So we really work to meet those immediate needs. We have things like food boxes and hygiene kits. And we also work with our lovely community partners to make sure that folks are getting connected to the longer term resources that are going to work best for them. Some folks talked about community, right? And we want to be a place where when folks walk through the door, they're welcome. Speaking of the doors, we have 2 locations, one in Dallas and one, so we're at the Academy building, the big Academy building right there in Dallas. We're also currently at the Ash Creek Annex in Monmouth. But that's temporary. We're going to be moving to the building behind the Roths. So if you've seen on Facebook folks saying, what's going in behind Roths? That'll be us. We're going to be there, and we're going to bring partners with us. So again, we're going to just really add to that no wrong door policy. We're going to have partners around the table on location with us to really meet client needs the best way that we can. So that is what I have to say about everything. Brent's standing up, so I think he might want to add a couple of things, but thank you.
Hey, I'm Brent DeMoe. I'm the director of the Family and Community Outreach Department. I want to say thank you to all y'all for coming out and hearing this. And can we just give one more round of applause for all of our presenters? And I've never seen Pastor Neely keep to 3 minutes, so you get extra cookies. Thank you, friend. That was nice work. Hey, listen, we got some wrap-up things. The agenda that I handed out to you when I welcomed you in here, it has a QR code on the back. That's something you can scan with your phone. Or if you're more old school like me, just find me afterwards. The key for that is we really need help with all of these efforts. Here's a pro tip for you. If you want to find out what's really going on, don't go to a community Facebook page to find out your information. You often will hear information that maybe isn't exactly what maybe you heard today from the actual folks doing the work. Every person's contact information is on the agenda. Every person that spoke today, their email is here. We also have a bunch of other folks at tables who weren't presenting but who have information. And this isn't even just probably half of the folks that we normally work with when we're talking with families that are at risk and families that are unsheltered. So if you want to stay involved, if you're looking for a volunteer opportunity, or you want to join a committee to do some of this work, if you want to help us find a new site somewhere in rural Polk County for micro shelters, just hook up on that QR code or come find any of us afterwards and we'll get you situated and get you connected to the right folks. That's pretty good. Do I have a time limit? Yeah, I probably do. So I think at the end, which is we're at the end, yes? I want you guys to know we're all going to be hanging around for the next half hour to 45 minutes to answer questions. And this is brave of me, and I wasn't going to do it. If you have a burning question or comment that you just need to ask in front of everybody, I'm going to take a few of those, and then we're going to break and talk to people. A burning question or comment. This is nice. This is good. If you were at the last meeting I did this is much different. I'm going to come to you next.
All right, quick question. I'm just wondering what it looks like to volunteer. What is that going to entail? Do you have a background check? I mean, how hard is it?
Do you have a background you're worried about? Asking for a friend. Agencies in this room who work with at-risk or homeless, do you have volunteer opportunities? Put your hands up. It's going to be every single one. Each agency might have something different as far as their requirements. Check with them. Of course, all good volunteers come to the county first, and I'll make sure to give you my card at the end of this, and all of our information is on our website. I'm sorry, we can't hear you. I have the microphone. Question from the back.
I was wondering, on this list, when you get a QR code, it's got the 10 boxes here. One of them says by name, police conferencing meeting.
That's a great question.
Yes, by name case conferencing. So this is a meeting, currently once a month, but we're looking to do increase that capacity to maybe do twice a month or even more. This is a meeting where community partners come around a table together and we bring clients and or situations about that client, and we say, hey, this is what we're doing with this client, this is how we're working with them. this is the need right now. How can we partner together and work together to solve that need? That is what this case conferencing meeting is about. So each meeting, we bring probably about 4 to 6 names to our meeting, and we go at it. We work together, and we solve issues.
It's also something that's not normally done. We did it for the first time yesterday. Most of the time, people stay in their silos. People who are working with clients for whatever reason, they just do what their agency does. But we're taking a different approach where we have a list of all 90 people that are unsheltered, and we're going to communicate with every single agency that might be working with them to find the fastest solution possible. It's sort of like, have you ever been to the doctor? You go to your doctor, and then your urologist doesn't know what your doctor's doing, and all of the different doctors, they don't really communicate. You have to tell your story over and over, and it takes forever to get connected. We're trying to take that away from the social service model, and we're doing it especially with folks experiencing homelessness. I'm going to take another question from anybody. I'm going to do her first, and I'm coming back to you. Go ahead and start talking, and I'll repeat it. Why aren't RVs considered housing? Aren't they just houses on wheels? One of our panelists want to take that one?
Let Ashley take it.
She knows all the definitions.
Yeah.
RV is not a fixed or stationary housing solution, essentially. So an RV can break down really quickly over time. You may not be able to make it to a hookup, may not be able to afford a hookup, so you don't have the heat you need, the water, the sewer. So it's not a fixed and stable condition, and they kind of run down pretty quickly over time. Most of the time when we encounter folks living in RVs, however, it's not an RV that you're imagining on a lovely weekend day where you're camping out on the dunes. Unfortunately, these conditions are in incredible disrepair, holes in the ceiling. They're not able to cook for themselves because there's no gas hookups. They're not able to access a restroom or use the restroom because there's no running water. So an RV at that point is just 4 thin walls that aren't even able to supply adequate heat or a living condition. So it's not as pleasant as a scenario as you would normally encounter, but really the definition is around it doesn't have the ability to have that permanent and fixed housing solution or capability.
And another question here.
My question is for Ryan, since you talked about the case conferencing meeting. I was curious if you can go into a little more detail of the release of information, of what that would look like, what exact information would be shared, and how do you best want to approach that with those individuals you are working with?
Since I'm the dude that worked with the lawyers on this, I'll handle this. Normally, a couple of weeks ago, sharing information about a client is not that great of an idea, especially if the client doesn't know. So I want you to rest assured, every client that we work with on case conferencing has signed a release of information where we can work with all of these partners here to find the best solution for them. We would never case conference an individual unless they gave us permission to do that. And then that information is not shared beyond the group that is working specifically with that individual. So if you want to be involved specifically with case conferencing, hook up with Ryan after this. We'll get you on that agenda. If you're working with someone who's experiencing homelessness, he'll tell you how to connect with him and how to get on one of our meeting agendas so we can work with that person. For sure. Oh, yeah. Safety, privacy, all of that is at the forefront. Have you ever worked with a county attorney before? Let me tell you. We made sure that we were doing everything by the book, and again, with the client at the center. Every client that we work with has given permission to talk to try to find the best solution for them. Does that answer your question? Good. Amy.
Thanks for calling me out. All right, I have a comment / question that Brent's going to clarify. So I have the pleasure of serving on the PATHS committee, working with all these wonderful partners, and I'm on the Polk Community Development Corporation board and several other boards. And I'm a very, very small cog in this wheel of magic that happens. But if you ever have the opportunity to be a part of the magic and watch everyone work their magic and wrap arms around these humans, it's a beautiful thing. And if Fall City could be eligible to host Church at the Park, we would. So I was hoping Brent could explain why we can't.
Yeah, because that's not a tough question, Amy. Thank you. It's way less of a why can't Fall City do it, because at this point in time, we don't have a location at all in rural Polk County, so nothing has been ruled out. But when you think about an ideal location for a micro-community, you do want to have some things in place. You want to have adequate public transportation. You want to have multiple resources available. Although places like Church in the Park and other service providers have great ways to offer transportation and services, a lot of the folks that we're working with are working. They do need public transportation, and they need a grocery store that they can go to. They need to be able to use SNAP benefits and other things. You're really ideally wanting a community that has some of those things in place currently. Maybe somewhere where they can go see a doctor or a dentist. And even though in our meeting yesterday we're doing awesome things in Fall City to make some of these things happen soon, ideally we would want to locate where some of those things are. However, if push came to shove, my own personal opinion, having a temporary transitional housing for folks in rural Polk County, having it anywhere is better than having it nowhere. Because let me tell you, I've been in this position. September will be my 14th year working for Polk County, and before that I worked on what we call the other side of the bridge. And I have seen what happens when you're not proactive about working with at-risk and homeless communities. We need to be proactive. We need to do something because our numbers they're not just doubling, they're more than that. We are seeing more and more families and folks at risk, and these are people from our community. If we don't do something soon, unfortunately, we will look like some of the other urban areas. So I would put something in Fall City before I put nothing nowhere. That didn't make sense. Edit that out of the recording later. Yes? Okay, I'm going to take one more question, and then we're going to break up, and you can ask people as many questions as you want.
Hi, thank you. I was just wondering, out of all of these organizations that have shelters, temporary shelters, or any kind of shelter at all, how many are there? What's the total amount?
Great question. Okay, so I'm going to try to answer this. When Eric talked about Gale's Lodge, which is just for male veterans, it's been open for 4 years and they can house 6 guys at a time. That's answer number 1. The youth program that Christopher talked about is not open yet. It'll be in Monmouth, and they'll be able to serve 5 at a time when it opens, which is soon, by the end of the summer. Pastor Neely talked about Ediger Hall. We literally got the appliances in this week, and we'll be moving in our first family probably by July 5th if all goes well. 1 family at a time, starting very soon. Church at the Park currently runs programs in Salem. They don't have a micro-community up in Polk County yet, but they have $1.7 million of grant funds to stand something up as quickly as possible. That site can serve 10 families or 40 individuals. All of that is yet to be decided, but they have the means to do that. And anybody else have a site up and running currently? The Confederated Tribes of Ronde, absolutely. They're taking care of folks out in the tribe, and you saw the slide that they had 25 beds, I think. And warming centers, absolutely. And then the other program that wasn't here tonight, Sable House, is a shelter in Dallas that is for domestic violence victims. They also can house around 10 folks at a time, but they received some money from the governor's emergency funds to also be able to do longer hotel stays, pay rents and deposits, so they've increased their capacity as well. But there are no shelter programs other than those. There are no overnight shelters. There's no temporary kind of transitional things right now. Those are the ones that we're aware of.